fierce defender and astute advisor of her husband, the first President Bush, as well as a devoted wife and mother, and one of the most popular first ladies in recent history, a woman well known as a straight talker. We have much more of the life and times of Barbara Bush in just a moment. And
hey,
out of the Trump White House,
welcome.
Unsettled over the investigation of his attorney Michael Cohen. In fact, a source telling CNN President Trump is not just angry; he's apoplectic. The president apparently fixated on what investigators see.
Apoplectic. Way to go!
That could include everything he has ever told Cohen and everything Cohen has ever done for him. Source pointing out that only Trump and Cohen know exactly what that entails. Another source saying, as upset as the president has been over the Russia investigation, quote, this issue in New York takes the cake by a mile because it is a treasure trove of information and things nobody knows about. It is personal. Also tonight, the ambassador strikes back. After top advisor Larry Kudlow tried to throw Ambassador Nikki Haley under the bus, claiming she may have been confused and, quote, got ahead of the curve, when she announced new sanctions on Russia, Haley had this blunt response, quote, with all due respect, I don't get confused. Well, Kudlow has apologized. To say that the policy had changed, but that the UN ambassador was not kept. And then there's Fox News' Hannity problem, though they don't see it as much of a problem. The network today had an awkward position of putting out a statement saying that they still support their biggest star. That's in the wake of the bombshell revelation that Hannity is Michael Cohen's mystery third client. But none of that seems to matter to the president. A source telling CNN, quote, the relationship between the two of them has grown stronger and stronger. Hannity affirms what Trump believes, and Trump obviously is giving him unparalleled access. So let's get started. I want to bring in now CNN's senior White House correspondent, a CNN special correspondent.
It's going down.
More on the life and times of Barbara Bush. Good evening to all of you. Jamie,
Suplex City.
I know you know her, and you said she wouldn't want us to cry over her or make over her, but what can you tell us about the matriarch of the Bush family?
Well, the first thing she would say is, what are you making the big fuss about? And then she would give you that look. She's 92 years old. It is a sad day, but she would want us to have a bourbon toast done probably at this point. You know, a lot of people were aware that her husband suffers from Parkinson's. We've seen him in the wheelchair, but not so many people were aware that she's been suffering from COPD and congestive heart failure for the last 2 years. She just got tired. She'd been in and out of the hospital. She was having trouble breathing. And this past week, she said, enough. We're going to do this on my terms. I don't want to go back into the hospital. I'm ready. She told her family that she was at peace. They all came and saw her. They were at peace. I know that her husband spent today at her side, holding her hand, and is heartbroken. But I think she did things the way Barbara Bush would do it. She did it on her terms.
Jeff, the White House is responding tonight, correct?
Don, they are indeed. Slightly unusual, two separate statements coming from the president himself and the first lady as well, even though other presidents, the Clintons and the Obamas, issued one statement. But let's take a look at a couple of these statements. First from President Trump, who's having a dinner this evening with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe at his Mar-a-Lago resort. But in part, the statement reads this: Mrs. Bush was an advocate of the American family. Among her greatest achievements was recognizing the importance of literacy as a fundamental family value that requires nurturing and protection. She will long be remembered, he says, for her strong devotion to country and family, both of which she served unfailingly well. Also, another statement, as I said, from the First Lady, Melania Trump, issuing her own statement to a former First Lady. It says in part,
issue no statement.
Put family and country above all else. Her dedicated service to the American people was pushed by her compassion and love of family. She was a woman of strength, and we will always remember her for her most important roles of wife, mother, and First Lady of the United States. So, Don, certainly,
you don't know nothing about no Barbara Bush. Your staff wrote that up. I want to write something also. I want to write. Go ahead.
As we were, just watching the coverage and preparing for your.
She was probably 5 when Barbara Bush was in the office, if she was born at all. She probably knowing we know she wasn't in the country.
Remember all of the names he said of cameramen, of reporters, of Kenny Bunkport would invite people into their family compound, into the house. I remember interviewing her in Iowa when George W. Bush was running. So such an American legacy here that she has, unique to virtually anyone else. So certainly a sad evening, but also one to take stock of this amazing, unique,
and to take stock of her humility. And she wasn't extravagant. I was listening to a story told on Anderson's show. Jamie, she didn't want to fly in Air Force One. She wanted to go commercial. She wanted to be driven around in a smaller car. I'm wondering though, because she was such a well-liked first lady, one of the most liked in recent history, as I said in the open. She ever compare herself to first ladies who came before or after her?
I don't remember her doing that. And just to talk about, I think we use the word authentic a lot these days. She was authentic, but one thing about her was fake, and she loved it. And those were those pearls she wore. Everybody saw she was known for those big pearls and everything, but she was proud that they were fake. Just the way, she had the common touch. She could talk to anybody. People thought of her as a more traditional first lady, but there is no question she was an essential political advisor and helper to her husband, though very much behind the scenes. The other thing that I think that's important to remember is this was a political family for a long period of time. Her husband's resume, from Congress to the UN, to China, to CIA, to vice president, she really was a critical part of that. Someone said to me tonight, "Do you know so-and-so? They're really good friends with the Bushes." And I didn't know them. And I said, "But you know what? They are really good friends with the Bushes. The Bushes have thousands of close personal friends." And a lot of that was because of Barbara Bush and the role that she played in their political life as well, Tom.
Thank you for that, Jamie. Thank you, Jeff, as well. I appreciate that. I need to turn now to a different White House, and the Bushes were in there. The developments in this Trump White House. Here to discuss CNN Chief National Security Correspondent Jim Sciutto, CNN legal analyst Laura Coates, and Michael Zeldin, who was Robert Mueller's special assistant at the Justice Department. Good evening to all of you. Jim, I'm going to start with the news. Sources are telling CNN that CIA Director Mike Pompeo met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un over Easter weekend in North Korea. That is remarkable.
No question. You have to go back 18 years for the last time you had this level meeting between the U.S. and North Korea. That was Madeleine Albright, at the time Secretary of State, met with Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un's father. Remarkable at that time. This meeting remarkable at this time. You would expect that both sides had assurances. You don't take that meeting unless you believe that there is a reason to meet, a reason to discuss, and that both sides put things on the table that makes the other want to sit down across from them, and particularly to lay the groundwork if you're going to have the leaders meet face to face. And that's something that President Trump referred to today, a meeting between him and Kim Jong-un, which he referred to as possible very soon. Of course, the trouble with talking with North Korea is there's been a lot of outreach through the last couple of decades and hopeful talks that haven't led to lasting agreement. So the real question will be not the talks, but what comes out of the talks, what's verifiable, and what is lasting out of any negotiations.
Laura, sources close to the president says President Trump is still, quote, apoplectic about the Cohen raids. Here's a key line. It said the source didn't specify what exactly the president is concerned about, because only Trump and Cohen know what they could possibly be. What does that tell you?
Well, of course he's apoplectic. Unlike the idea of the Russia collusion investigation, which until we learn more information or an indictment is forthcoming, any involvement by Trump is still in the hypothetical realm right now. There may be indications in Mueller's team, but the public hasn't seen that. When you come to Cohen, it's not hypothetical that there actually is going to be information. There will be a treasure trove of information which has the president's fingerprints all over it, citizen Donald Trump, candidate Donald Trump. Now, what it will entail or include, we don't know. But of course, he is rightly justified in feeling as though his personal and perhaps potential bones that may be buried somewhere will be exposed. And so I think he's apoplectic far more about this case than he would be the Russian collusion, because he cannot hide behind the idea of the hypothetical.
Michael, listen, no one wants their conversations rifled through their personal business, but why would the president be apoplectic if everything is above board?
Well, let me start first by saying, Don, that I wanted to send my condolences to the Bush family. Having investigated George Herbert Walker Bush for 3 years, I feel like I've gotten to know them some, and they are a class family. So I wanted to say that to start. Second, to your question, the reason that anyone would feel upset about their attorney's office or their business partners being searched by federal law enforcement officers is you don't know what it is that they're after. We know from the opposition to the motion for restraining order that the government filed against Cohen, they said that Cohen's crimes or potential crimes, quote, sound in fraud and speak to dishonesty. So we know that they view this as a fraud-based, sort of dishonest-based activity set. How that implicates, if at all, the president is unknown and unknowable at this point. But he knows what he needs to be worried about. He has said apoplectic. He hasn't said worried. There's a difference between being mad and being worried. And we'll see as the facts play out whether he has something to be mad about because his attorney's office was searched, or mad and worried about because they did something that either is going to be embarrassing but lawful or unlawful and problematic.
Hey, Jim, there's so much on this president's plate. This is what he's consumed by?
Apparently, yes. although also paying attention to other issues if he was willing to send his CIA director and soon to be, if confirmed, Secretary of State to North Korea. But in his public comments, at least many of his public comments, he's clearly wrapped up very much in the continuing Mueller investigation, and particularly, it seems, when it gets close to him, whether it proves wrongdoing or not, but just gets into an area that he considers his private business and nothing to do with his position as president.
And by the way, Don, it needs to be said, we keep referring to Michael Cohen as the president's personal attorney, but the government's case is largely found with respect to being able to raid his home, his office, and his hotel room, that perhaps his dealings with the president of the United States was not in an attorney-client fashion. So imagine, if you will, you were the president of the United States or one of the other 2.5 clients, shall we say, of Michael Cohen, and you're wondering to yourself, which conversations did I have, which one would be privileged, and which ones would I have to parse out were business or had nothing to do with his law degree. That's part of the nature of the uncertainty that makes everybody, I'm sure, around him feel quite unsettled.
Stick around, everyone. When we come back to the White House, learning not to mess with Nikki Haley, why the U.S. ambassador to the UN fired back at a top Trump aide tonight, and he apologized.
As a control enthusiast, I'm all business when I travel. Even when I travel for leisure. So I go national, where I can choose any available upgrade in the aisle without starting any conversations or paying any F charges. What can I say? Control suits me. Go national. Go like a pro.
Great. Another dead end.
Sarge, I just got a tip that'll crack this case wide open. Turns out the Prince of Times.
Did the Gruffy Wuffy get a tippy whippy?
I'm serious. We gotta move fast before.
Good boy.
Is him a good boy?
I'm just gonna go.
We won't go outside. You gotta go take your poo.
I already went. Okay. In the bathroom.
As long as people talk baby talk to dogs, you can count on Geico saving folks money. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
When I received the diagnosis, I knew at that exact moment, I'm beating this. My main focus was to find a team of doctors. It's not just picking a surgeon, it's picking the care team and feeling secure where you are. Visit cancercenter.com/breast.
Hey, I'm curious about your Social Security alerts.
Oh, we'll alert you if we find your Social Security number on any one of thousands of risky sites, so you'll be in the know.
Oh, being in the know is very good.
Sign up online for free. Discover Social Security alerts.
We may be one of the world's most familiar companies, but we make more than our name suggests. We're an organic tea company, a premium juice company, a coconut water company. We've got drinks for long days, for birthdays, for turning over new leaves. And we make them for every moment in every corner of the country. We are the Coca-Cola Company, and we're proud to offer so much more.
This is Dr. Gunther Zulauf. Did he solve Carmichael's totient conjecture? Yes. Yes, he did. Or did he buy his car at drive time using the industry's smartest online tools? No, he did not. Dr. Gunther Zulauf was almost a genius. Intelligent online financing and live market-based pricing on over 15,000 vehicles. DriveTime.com, the genius way to buy a car.
My name is Jeff Sheldon, and I'm the founder of Upmonk. Before ShipStation, it was crazy. Like, it's great when you see, 100 orders come in, but then you realize I got 100 orders that I actually have to ship out. ShipStation streamlined that whole process. The order data, the weights of the items, everything is seamlessly put into ShipStation. So when we print the shipping label, everything's pretty much done. It's so much easier. So now we're ready, bring on the orders.
ShipStation, the #1 choice of online sellers. Go to shipstation.com/TV and get 2 months free. The all-new season of Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown, starts Sunday, April 29th at 9 on CNN.
So on CNN tonight, President Trump is apoplectic about the Fed's raid on his attorney, Michael Cohen, but he's also increasingly angry at Robert Mueller and Rod Rosenstein. That would be now Jim Sciutto, Laura Coates, and Michael Zeldin. Michael, this was for you. The former Attorney General, Eric Holder, was on MSNBC earlier tonight. He was asked if he has the power to fire Rosenstein. Watch this.
He could do that. Would that constitute in your mind more evidence of obstruction were he to do that?
I'm not sure it would necessarily by itself constitute obstruction. The question would be what was his intent in doing so, but it would play into a narrative that I think leads one to conclude that the president probably has engaged in some obstructive behavior.
Okay, so Holder is saying, Michael, he's also talked about how Trump is putting pressure on all of our government institutions. Is it a pattern of obstruction, even if each individual action may not constitute obstruction all on its own?
Well, a couple of things about what Eric said. First is he and I disagree about whether the president possesses the legal power to fire Mueller. My view is that he does not have that power. It's a derived power through the Attorney General, and only the Attorney General has that power. Second, in respect of obstruction of justice, there's an open question about whether the president can be charged with obstruction of justice for doing something he has a constitutional right to do. If that's the question of firing Comey, it's not clear. The Office of Legal Counsel also has said that a sitting president cannot be indicted. And so I'm not sure what indictment there is that could possibly be here. But in the abstract, if you're looking at this as more an abuse of office, articles of impeachment sort of sense, then yes, obstruction of justice is a mosaic of activity that you take the constituent parts of and you put together and you see whether that pattern constitutes an effort to interfere with an ongoing investigation or the due administration of justice, depending on which statute you're inquiring under in a criminal law sense or in an abuse of office sense, whether it together rises to a high crime and misdemeanor.
Yeah, Jim, the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell was on Fox News today. Here's what he said about the Mueller the protection bill.
I don't think he should fire Mueller, and I don't think he's going to. So this is a piece of legislation that's not necessary in my judgment.
Well, obviously, none of your colleagues fear it enough to say it should be in there as an.
Yeah, but I'm the one who decides what we take to the floor. That is my responsibility as the majority leader. Will not be having this on the floor of the Senate.
Would you be shocked if he did fire him?
Yes, I don't think he should, and I don't think he will.
So he says legislation to protect Robert Mueller isn't necessary because he doesn't think Trump will fire Mueller, but hasn't he already tried?
Well, listen, it's always struck me as a somewhat odd argument from the Senate Majority Leader. I mean, one, politically, of course, you have numerous Democrats who want this legislation, but they're joined now by a handful of Republicans who are concerned enough to lend their support, which is not an easy thing to do in the current state of party politics here. But to say that because your judgment is it's not necessary, I'm not even going to put it on the floor, right? Because, vote against it if you don't think it's necessary, but to not allow it to go to a vote, it's an interesting strategy. But listen, it may be a measure of where Republican Party politics are now, and Mitch McConnell has often had his finger on the pulse. And the fact is that there are a number of Americans who see the Mueller investigation is going too far, and that might be what this move is about, other than his judgment that it's not necessary.
He's putting a lot of trust, Laura, in a president that we know has already tried to fire the special counsel on multiple occasions.
The trust is entirely misplaced. Don, tell me what laws are on the books that are not proactive and are written in a way that predicts and expects poor behavior, but hopes that it does not occur. Most, if not all of the laws that we have on the books that is overseen by Congress and they put out there are because you hope people will do the right thing, but you expect them to not do so. And you base it on human nature. If you're Donald Trump and looking at him, you base it off of his tweets. And you would expect, based on his commentary, based off the comments by Sarah Huckabee Sanders on what they believe they have the right to do, that Mitch McConnell should expect that this is a possibility and should guard against it. And remember, the only thing that really preserves the ability of Robert Mueller to have the derivative power that Michael was talking about, meaning that only Deputy Attorney General can actually fire him, is based on this code of federal regulations that Congress has handed over to the DOJ. They haven't codified that in the actual statutes, and they're trying to simply add that fail-safe, add that underlying protection. And that Mitch McConnell won't do so, he effectively is greenlighting the result by pretending that laws are only meant to be for people who will never do anything wrong.
I want to switch subjects. Michael, I'll get you on the next subject. I want to start with Jim on this one. The White House suggested that UN Ambassador Nikki Haley got ahead of the curve when she announced additional sanctions on Russia. Trump's chief economic advisor said there must have been a momentary confusion. Well, she put out a statement. She said, with all due respect, it's very simple. I don't get confused. So Kudlow apologized, right?
Yeah, listen, it is a pretty remarkable smackdown within the senior leadership of the Trump administration. But keep in mind, it wasn't just Kudlow who was pushing this line over the course of the last 24, 48 hours. A number, I spoke to someone in the White House, my colleagues, did, and the line may not have been as harshly worded as Kudlow saying she was confused, but they were saying, well, listen, she went out there on Sunday, this wasn't fully baked, maybe the talking points had not been checked with the White House, so it was more than one person who was putting out there that it was on Nikki Haley, that she was over her skis, as it were, on this. Now, for folks who know and cover Nikki Haley and have dealt with her before, she's a very precise, meticulous individual who is known for checking her talking points with the White House before she goes forward and knowing what the deliberations are within the NSC. So the idea, from the beginning, I found the idea that somehow she had gone willy-nilly on the floor of the UN Security Council to make this promise, this vow, without kind of crossing the T's and dotting the I's. It struck me as somewhat difficult to believe. So, you heard it from her mouth right now. That was a very clear message, not to Larry Kudlow, but to the administration, that she had it right in her view.
Before I run out of time, I want to get Michael. And Michael, when you see, an about face like this on policy, you got to wonder why and whether it all ties back to the Russia investigation, whether Russia has something on this president and so on.
Right. So if you're a conspiratorial theorist, and absolutely you say, well, of course, with all this heating up around Mueller and Cohen and everything, the last thing the president wants to do is upset the Russians so that they'll release that dossier of incriminating information that is alleged to be out there. I can't go there personally. I don't like to.
I like to go there. Let's talk about it. Thanks for the donation. I'll see you anytime.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. We come back. Fox News standing by Sean Hannity, even though they admit they didn't know about his ties to Michael Cohen. But something doesn't add up here why they are giving him their full support.
Yeah. Because they crooked. Crooked people stand by crooked people.
450-9187.
Ain't that what happened? The crooked defends the crooked.
Right, Fox News saying that while it did not know Sean Hannity was a client of President Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, it stands by him anyway. So let's bring in a columnist for the New York Times and a political analyst, Kirsten Powers, a columnist for USA Today, and James Fallows, national correspondent for The Atlantic. Next month, his new book, there it is, Our Town, written with his wife, Deborah Fallows, will be published. Leave it up there as long. That's great. Can't wait to read it. Good evening, everyone. Frank, I'm going to start with you. I want to talk about Sean Hannity being the third mystery client of President Trump's embattled attorney, Michael Cohen. Fox News is apparently just as surprised as the rest of us to learn that Hannity was one of Cohen's three clients. So here's what the network says. It says, while Fox News was unaware of Sean Hannity's informal relationship with Michael Cohen and was surprised by the announcement in court yesterday, we have reviewed the matter and spoken to Sean, and he continues to have our full support. So business continues as usual.
I'm shocked. But why wouldn't he have their full support? I mean, by normal journalistic ethics, for him to go on and on about how awful this raid on Cohen's offices were and never mention his relationship with Cohen, by normal journalistic ethics and standards, that's reprehensible. But Sean Hannity doesn't really pretend to be a journalist, and we shouldn't pretend he's a journalist. And I think Fox News knows what they have in him. They don't really expect the kind of behavior from him that another news organization would expect from someone who's.
They all in it together? I think so.
So I don't find their acceptance of this at all unusual.
What's your take? Is he bigger than Fox News?
No, I mean, he's very central to Fox News. I think that's part of it. But I also think that Fox News, as you know, they make the distinction that I think Fox and Friends is entertainment, and then it starts at 9 o'clock, it's news, and then it goes up.
He said this when everybody started dying. This is the end of the good fella.
I do think that for a while people sort of understood this. But now, because Hannity's become so...
Average viewer does not.
Well, because Hannity's become so influential with Donald Trump, I feel like it's changed a little bit, you know, and that he has become really a pipeline for the administration. And so it's hard to say like you're just entertainment. I don't know if that's quite right. And you know, even
everybody ran out of here.
Influencing policy in your
Murph the Smurf is the only guy sticking around.
Sharing the policy with the public. So I feel like, just to be honest with the viewers, you should disclose it, whether or not you call yourself a journalist or not. It just seems like something you should disclose.
And then driving the narrative, James, of the policy, correct?
Sorry, I say again, please.
I said driving the narrative of the policy as well.
Oh, yes, of course. And as we know from reporting and all the pictures, of sort of driving the emotional intensity of Donald Trump as well. I think the points all of you have made are critical in that this is a clarifying moment about Fox. I think you said, Don, that the average viewer doesn't really distinguish between these so-called news and so-called entertainment, although there are very different kinds of people doing it. They see it's all Fox, it all says Fox News Channel. And for any normal organization to have this kind of central issue not disclosed even within the company would be, I think, just the end of somebody's career there. So the fact that Fox just says, okay, go ahead, this is fine with us, it does clarify the fact that it's really misleading to call it a news organization anymore, because it is a entertainment/political combine.
Yeah, it is a mutual admiration society, and that's no secret. Let's play this.
I don't hold back. I'll be voting for Donald Trump in November.
I will say this. You have been so great, and I'm very proud of you.
All the accomplishments of the president, keeping his promise, checking off his list.
And Hannity, how good is Hannity, he said? And he's a great guy, and he's an honest guy.
Take a look on your screen right there. Here is a list of President Trump's accomplishments for 2017.
James, talk to me about that. What are the red flags there?
Well, this is, you know, through American history, there have been commentators and journalists who've been allied either secretly or openly with various political figures back, you know, the dawn of time. Alexander Hamilton used to write anonymous editorials praising himself and so on. But again, this is in modern journalism. This is something that you don't see. You don't see this kind of, just kind of political log rolling of this sort. In an organization that presents itself, that wants to be seen as a we report, you decide news organization. So it wants to have it both ways, and being grouped with everybody else when convenient, and then having just this sort of, side branch of the White House press office. And I think that may be becoming commercially beneficial to them, but unsustainable for everybody else who's not on the team to see this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was at Fox when George W. Bush was president. And I don't ever remember there ever being such an alignment, between the White House, this kind of just, it's almost like Hannity's working for Donald Trump, or the Fox and Friends is working for Donald Trump, like they're boosters. I just don't remember that. I don't even remember it with Hannity, who was there to sort of, spout the conservative line unabashedly every night. It's just bizarre to kind of watch it, how they are just, it's like they work for Donald Trump. I mean,
100%.
Yeah. No, I mean, at least transparent. Does that say something?
James raised an important historical point, which is there's plenty of prior coziness between journalists or journalistic organizations and presidents.
This is more like coordination.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's what this feels like. And I mean, you can listen to Hannity and hear the same phrases coming out of his mouth that you've just heard coming out of the president's, or that you will soon hear coming out of the president's. Same relationship, symbiotic, exists with Fox and Friends and the presidency. I don't recall anything like that with the prior administration.
As my friend who was a former Trump supporter, voted for Trump, texted me when this all came out and said, now there is the real collusion right there.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
It's just one further thing. You know, there have been times through American history, again, as Frank is saying, where there have been sort of information bubbles and people will believe one thing or another. Even, you know, go back to before the Civil War, what the entire white South thought about racial relations in those days. But I think what we're seeing right now that is new, at least in modern history, is the alignment of a political party and a major news organization in overt, unashamed, you know, kind of right out front, colluding ways, if you will. And that is something we have not seen before, and we'll see where it takes us.
Yeah, I want to play. How much time do I have, producers? Do I have enough to play both of these sound bites? Because I'm going to play. This is Alan Dershowitz first, talking to Hannity, who has been, you know, some people say he's become a Trump apologist. He says he's fighting for civil liberties. Watch. Here's what he said.
I think it would have been much, much better had you disclosed that relationship. You
understand the nature of it, Professor? I'm going to deal with this later in the show.
I understand.
It was minimal. I understand that.
You should have said that. And that would have been fair to say that it was minimal.
That's
You
fine.
were in a tough position because A, you had to talk about Cohen, and B, you didn't want the fact that you had spoken to him to be revealed. And you had the right, by the way, not to have your identity.
I have the right to
revealed.
privacy.
Right.
I
But,
do.
you know, it's a complex situation when you're speaking
It was
to
such a
millions of
minor,
people.
Professor, it was such a minor relationship in terms
You
of,
should have
and
said
it had
that.
to,
I was going to play what legendary Ted Koppel said next, but no, hold on, because you were. What did you want to say about that?
Well, I was just sort of aghast at the notion Sean Hannity saying he has the right to privacy. He has stepped out to be the most public kind of figure. And, you know, we all have the right to some privacy, but he doesn't have the right not to tell his viewers that he has this kind of relationship with someone whom he's talking about in a news story night after night after night. And if they had only minor interactions and there was nothing there, all the more reason to put that out there right away. So when it comes out later, you don't look like you were hiding something, which I suspect he is hiding.
Well, also, I don't know how. And look, I like Sean. I worked with him for a long time, so I'm not, you know, trying to pile on.
It's not personal, because we all know Sean.
Yeah, but I think if you're going to assert there's some sort of attorney-client privilege, you just can't have it both ways. Like ways, either you had a very casual conversation with somebody, and let's just get it out in the open, or you did something that's an actual transactional relationship.
Very simple. All you have to do is say, and, you know, Michael Cohen, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, I have a relationship with Michael Cohen. I've gotten legal advice. Now let's start the conversation, right?
Yeah.
But
what I'm saying is you don't need attorney-client privilege for a conversation over dinner or something.
James, quickly, I got to get to the break, please.
So quickly, in a normal news organization, what we've all been talking about, how it has to be. So the fact that Fox is not doing it, again, shows the abnormality.
All right. Stay with me, all of you. When we come back, I want to talk to you all about our breaking news tonight, and that is a former First Lady.
I'm here. I'm just listening.
At the age of 92. Look at this. Flags at the White House, now flying at half staff.
I bet they are.
Powers and James Fallows as well. Frank, you interviewed the former First Lady a few times, and how are you going to remember her?
You know, I think more than anything else, I will remember her spectacular bluntness. You know, I mean, it's something you don't see in a lot of public figures.
Well, so that's where we at with Hannity. We had already covered all that. I don't need them to come back with the First Lady again. Bush had the CIA backing him. He was the president of the CIA. He looked like he's lying. Absolutely. He's a walking lie. Hannity. Where is Hannity now? Let's see old Hannity running for the.
And others.
What's next for the White House? More ducking and dodging and more nonsense. I mean, it is what it is. Life's treating me. Life isn't the problem. It's just my body's failing me. And that's only because when you leave away from home and you're staying at someone else's house, your mom's, and you come back to the way you're living, you have to adjust. And I've been there for so long. Y'all didn't realize how long I was gone, did y'all? I was at my mom's house for like a month. Y'all didn't hardly y'all even noticed. I was gone a month. Came back out to here from Florida, and I've been having a hard time trying to adjust to my schedule. So my body is failing me. They're 1 hour ahead, which isn't too much of a problem. It's just that when you're on another schedule, because I got to make sure I get up in the morning. If my mom got to go be somewhere in the morning, I could sleep in the afternoon. You know, it's entirely different. It's rough for me now because when you're used to your body gets used to doing something when you're older. When you're younger, you just roam. Your body adjusts like that. When you get older, things slow down. I wouldn't say the night owls are the first to go. It's just that you fatigue later on in the day. It takes a lot out of you to get stuff done when your body's readjusting. Like tonight, I'll probably go to sleep a little earlier than usual because I was up a little later than my usual schedule before. And it's just been rough. Right. It's like going from second shift, working third shift. That one little shift over could throw your whole body out of whack. One night is cool. But like here, I have a schedule. I have things that I do. Like I wake up in the morning, I do this, I do that, I do this. And when you go somewhere else for a month and do something different, then you come back and you got to get back on your schedule. It's a whole different world. Now, if you do it for 1 day or 2 days or whatever, that's fine. Not a problem. I was thinking about moving to Florida. Um, I don't know. I might do it later on. It's just hard to leave a city you lived in your entire life where you know everything and go back over there. I was learning out what stuff is over there. Because if I move, I want to live in that area. I wouldn't want to live nowhere near the heart of the city. That's where too much nonsense takes place. Plus, they got a lot of MS-13s out there. Yeah, anything with no tax, that's what my dad piled in for. He loved that.